How we doing, people? It's AJ Torres from Calling Strikes, and we got Matt Kaimer from Friar Talk back here again. And Matt, I gotta tell you something. When I was telling you about Blake Snell, I was half breaking balls. I was half being serious. When it's a road trip coming up, I said, you know what? Keep that guy off the plane. Have him rehab back at a team facility or something. Give him a sports psychologist. And at that point around, like I said, I was being half serious and I was half joking. And sure enough, he gets the stomach bug. And I think every Padre fan is like, oh, but I'm worried about the bullpen. But yeah, at the same time, chances are he'd be not making it to the fourth inning anyway. So I guess we'll start off with that. And I've inquired with Anthony Kay about this because, if he used to have sports psych and, when it comes to the psychology of the game, it's definitely the most psychological, in my opinion. So how do we help Blake Snell, and are you glad that he didn't pitch on the road?
Well, you've seen the home road splits at home.
Pain.
Been a ace-like pitcher, like he was advertised as when he got traded to the Padres. And then on the road, I think he's repping over a 10 ERA right now, and very
before he went to the Colorado Rockies now, I won't count Colorado because there's some of the best players that just, the best pitchers that don't perform in Colorado because of the altitude. But outside of that, before that, his ERA was sitting around 9.60 compared to under 2.5 at home. At home, he's dependable, and away, you might not even have him travel with the team and go on the plane. So how do we fix this? I mean, this is not load management in basketball. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. Have you?
I don't think so. It's really odd because
this is going to be a weird baseball story.
yeah, no. And it's weird because you look at him and you go, sometimes he comes out there and he just looks really good. And he's on. And then sometimes, and what Chase, who's one of my co-hosts, what he kind of talked about last time when we were having this discussion, he advocated for Snell to stop throwing this changeup. Then if you remember, there was a game, and it was against the Mets. It was the game that he had I think he went 7 scoreless. And I
remember that game, yes.
Yeah, he went out. He only threw his changeup 3 times. It was the least amount of times he had thrown his changeup all season. And he was excellent. It was his best outing. And he came out, and if you ever hear him in post-game interviews, he's hilarious. He's a great first interview. He's a cool dude, and I like him. Yeah, 100%. And he comes out, and he's like, oh, yeah, my changeup, I wasn't feeling it, so I put it on timeout. And so we were very happy because that's what Chase thought was the biggest issue, because he felt like every time he'd throw his changeup, he'd fall behind, right? And that's where he gets to.
It depends on how you mix it in, and also this goes back to last year. He didn't last too much last year, but Austin Hedges always called a great game behind the plate. His downside was that guy couldn't hit anything. But one thing I've noticed is that certain guys, when they throw the changeup, some of them throw it early on, and some people have it away as a put-away pitch. Now, I'm not sure if he's that type of guy, but I think it depends on how you put it in your repertoire. Like if you have 2 strikes on a guy, and there's some people that are able to throw the changeup. Let's just say my pinky finger is the bottom strike zone. There's some people that have the ball come in and it kind of dips a little bit down and it starts to flow away around the zone. So if that's the case, that might be able to help them. But the thing is, every time you elevate the changeup, it's just a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the problem was, that location you're talking about where you can hit it consistently in the zone. He's bouncing so many of those. And so Chase's thought was he's just wasting pitches and falling behind. So then after that game, he started throwing it again. And then I want to say the game after the Mets game was the Rockies game. I could be wrong on that. It might have been one outing after.
I think it was, because that Met game, he pitched phenomenal, but also it's kind of a night and day difference because, again, this is the Mets they are now officially, last time I checked, as far as runs per game, the last in all of MLB. So that's another statistic that kind of goes differently. Now, do I think that there's a couple things that add into it? Yes. I'm not going to knock him, but at the same time, You're not going to tell me only a couple of pitches are going to be different from him not being hit off of until when he got pulled, until, oh, next start. Okay, Colorado, one. Number two, on the road, he's been historically just got awful.
So some people were talking about like the road, going back to the road stuff a little bit, not talking about his changeup, but that it's just being like having an unfamiliar, like being unfamiliar with some of the ballparks. And I don't know if that's necessarily the case. That seems kind of odd. I will say there are true adjustments to changing from the American League to the National League, but I would expect that those are more of I've never faced this hitter opposed to
yes.
I've never pitched in this
So
park.
the way that I kind of put this is a couple of things. Number one, I don't see Blake Snell as a fly ball pitcher. If he was a fly ball pitcher, and there's a lot of ballparks in the National League now, some of them aren't necessarily hitter friendly, I would say. But it kind of goes like this. If you're a fly ball pitcher and you go to some place like Yankee Stadium or Coors Field, it's kind of troubling. But if you go to the National League, if you remember, the Coliseum has the biggest amount of foul territory in all of Major League Baseball. He's pitched there before. As far as the National League and the adjustments outside Coors Field, I mean, I'm just not buying that one personally. Now, again, I'm not sure what it is. We're still trying to diagnose this, but it's just been a problem. I mean, yeah, is the Dodgers lineup heavy? Is the Giants lineup better than what everyone thought it was originally? And Brandon Crawford is having a career year, not just a bounce back year, a career year. Stuff like that. I mean, are things to, put incentive in, but it's like if he gets shelled by the Diamondbacks, I'd be panicking. And that is by far the worst team in baseball when everyone said it's going to be Colorado. And I've wrote about that. And it's weird because you don't have to worry about two teams in your division, Matt, because the Rockies have never gotten it together outside that 1 year in October. And the Diamondbacks, they just never have a plan that lasts longer than 3 or 4 years. The team is not.
They have one guy carrying the whole squad there.
Well, not only that, but they keep trading their stars away. Goldie traded.
Well, same with the Rockies. The thing is, they don't trade them for enough. They don't trade them for enough either. Look back at that the Arenado trade. They did not get nearly enough.
Fleeced.
Yes, absolutely. That's
the reason why that the guy was asked to resign.
Well, some of our listeners have said, hey, we just need to go out there and we just need to start trading with the Rockies if we want to keep building up this team because we're going to come out net positive every time.
Okay, but right now on this Rockies team, right? Yeah. Look at the talent right now. Who are you taking?
Oh, the only guy I would want, right? Well, and I mean, Trevor Story's a great player, but the only guy I'd really want to make a move for would be Blackman. That would be an amazing. No, just short-term outfielder. And I still wouldn't take Blackman. And that I think that C.J. Abrams is a future corner outfielder for the team, and not everyone, not every Padre fan thinks that. So
now, I think the reason being is because that was the confusing thing, is because we knew that Machado and Tatis were locked in on the left side of the infield for a long time. The confusing thing was putting Kim to a 5-year deal. I'm like, wait, this guy's 31, and he's just now playing Major League Baseball, 5-year contract. Where's he going to play? I mean, Cronenworth came out of existence and showed everybody he could play, and he could still play. Yeah. And he is the guy for the future. Except even if you put the DH into play, right? Look at the roster and look at who needs to play every single day. Look at how many guys need to be rotated for rest. I just don't see that there's room for if you just look at the infield, Machado and Tatis are a lock.
Cronenworth is a lock to play somewhere in the
Cronenworth is a lock. Okay, so where do you put Kim and where do you put Abrams?
So,
if you're saying left field, where at home, that is a big left field. And I said the same thing with Profar last year. You heard me bitch, piss, and moan about that. That is not an easy left field to cover. And I don't see a middle infielder out there. He's gonna die.
Well, I think that he has range, you know his speed grade's 80, right? Like he is one of the top speed grades in the whole sport.
Yes.
And I know that's not everything. He would have to adapt to the position. The difference I have with him is he he's not just a baseball player. He's a pure athlete. Like, he could probably play other professional sports if he went that route. He could probably be an NFL player. He could probably be some type of track star in the Olympics if he went that route. But he was best at baseball. So
well, I thought the same thing with Mateo, because if you remember this as a Yankee fan, I remember the trade for Sonny Gray, and he was thrown in that package, and his speed rating was in the 70s. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this speedster, let's see how he does in left field. It doesn't work that way.
Well,
the Yankees are currently trying Miguel Andujar in left field, and he's still learning the position. And it's not something you do mid-year. It's something you do in spring training. You give it a month, and after a month, you got to let it die.
I don't think that Abrams
minors. That's different.
I don't think Abrams would play this year in the outfield. I think that would be something that they would bring into, like, that would happen in 2022, where it would be spring training. It would be all of that. And that's why I think they haven't kind of played their cards in terms of that yet, where we haven't seen Abrams out there. And I could be totally wrong about that. That's like pure speculation on my end, just talking about where he could play. I'll also add Profar, Mateo, they are not outfielders. They have zero instincts for the position. So if that is your issue with Abrams, then you have to move. Then what would happen, in my opinion, is Kim. I think, well, I don't think you move Abrams. I think Kim is always going to be a reserve role. And the difference when you talk about Kim's contract, he has a whole nother side to his deal where financially, yeah, they pay him a lot, but they are trying to expand the international brand of the Padres. And that's why Kim's so big at that. Kim is a Korean baseball legend. So, like, people love him. But
at the other side of the table, now, me and you have talked Olympic baseball, and we'll be talking about that shortly. But just remember, guess who's also a South Korean legend in baseball? He's a gold medalist.
Who?
Ryu, now a Blue Jay.
So yes, there are other guys.
Yes, there are guys, but yes, Ryu is a South Korean gold medalist for the Olympics.
I didn't know
a lot of people forget about that.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yep.
So I think the plan is somehow you have, and we were talking about this before we got in there. Somehow you have to get Hosmer out of there. I don't know how it's even possible.
I don't think it is possible. I mean, does he have a full trade clause?
No, not anymore.
Not anymore.
But he has 4 years left on his deal.
So I think now this is my theory. I think they're going to put him, I think this year they're going to put the DH after this year, that is, because after this year, it's going to be November, December. There's, everyone's talking about, is there going to be a strike? Is there not going to be a strike? I think they're going to have to put a couple of things in place. Now, one is the DH. Two is the sticky substance and just everything that goes on there, punishment, call up a guy, not call up a guy, get paid, not get paid, whatever. They're going to have to solve that out and put it set in stone. And if a guy has rosin in his glove, do you care or do you not care? I think they shouldn't care, but it's an absolute mess with baseball and it's politics. We know that. But I think when the DH comes in, now, how many years is left on the Will Myers deal?
I want to say 2, but I will look it up as we talk.
Does that mean this year and 2 more years?
I think 2 after this year, but I'll look it up right now and see.
Okay.
So then, real quick, before I look that up, what do you think about potentially moving Cronenworth to first, putting Abrams at second? So, because Cronenworth is a really good first baseman, and he plays there from time to time. And Hosmer would either you try to move him for another outfielder that's heavily overpaid. I've talked about Jason Hayward as a guy. The problem is the Cubs don't want a first baseman, so that doesn't really work.
The problem being is I just think that there's a lot of bad fielding lefty hitting first baseman that need to be a full-time DH. And with salary cap being such a big deal, with a lot of teams shying away from spending because of the COVID quote-unquote losses, that type of crap going on, whatever excuse they want to pull out there. And plus, I just don't see him as a movable piece. I think he's going to be a platoon DH. Now, we know that against lefties, Now, this year, I think he's been doing okay against lefties. But we know that history says
No. Early on, he was doing good against
early
lefties.
on, I'm going by as a whole. So far, he's been what he is. But I think it's going to be, unfortunately, a platoon DH. And I think there's going to be a plateau of rotating guys like the way the Cubs do it, where it's like, you know what, this guy plays first this day, this guy gets a DH. Because if you're DHing, that means you have a half day off. So it's like, okay, full day, rest day, half day, that sort. Like if some of your catchers, like there's a lot of good hitting catchers out there. Like if you're Salvatore Perez, occasionally you give him, hey, older in his career, if it's, hey, 6 games this week, one's going to be off and one's going to be a half day because you got to be DH because you're a threat in that lineup. I think it'll work that way for a lot of guys because, I mean, you got to keep everyone healthy. Manny's going to need a day off occasionally. I think Haas is going to get some time on the bench if there's a power lefty.
Yeah, no, they've been doing that.
Because if you have the depth, right, I absolutely agree with Preller and Tingler by saying, you know what, if you got a guy like Clayton Kershaw on the mound, let's take out the lefty Eric Hosmer. Not saying you need to have an already lineup.
Well, that's the thing. Grisham and Cronenworth can hit lefties. And they're pretty even. Like Grisham loves it, Kershaw. Like there's guys in the Padres.
Oh yes, I know. And I'm a big fan of Grish, and I'm a big fan of Cronenworth. You know that.
Yeah.
Those guys get it done, and the fact that Grisham just needed a change of scenery, and that was the best part of his best thing that happened to his career. It seemingly so.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys got a good thing coming on. I mean, do I think the Giants would be great this year? I thought they were going to be around 500, maybe a little above 500. I expected the floor for them to be 75 games. They're exceeding expectations.
I think the Giants are going to fall off.
Well, how far could Johnny Cueto go? Because he's been okay this year. That's just one thing. The whole contract, he's mostly been bad.
I don't know. I think when you at least maybe not fall off, like they could absolutely still make a wild card, but I think the real race in the NL West is going to be between the Padres and the Dodgers. And I know right now the Giants are in first, so it sounds kind of weird, but the Giants have had by far the easiest schedule. The Padres and the Dodgers have, for one, they've been really injured early on, especially the Dodgers. Like the Padres have had injuries.
Well, not only that, but they listen, I said to everybody, because I've reviewed a lot of reports. Unfortunately, I've seen a gruesome photo. Now, easy now. Hold up. Got a guess, I guess. But I will not be viewing the Trevor Bauer investigation. But there has been some gruesome details. He has been on commissioner leave. And with that, David Price is most likely going to be taking his spot. But we know how things go with David Price. Good guy. Would love him in the locker room, love him in the clubhouse, all that. But that's definitely going to be a problem that's hurting that locker room.
I mean, it has to. And
has to.
Yeah.
I mean, Trevor Bauer brought a lot of good energy to the team, and obviously, statistically, he's a great pitcher. Do I think he's worth $40 million? No, but do I think that he's great at what he does? Yes. He was, at least, a good figure for the sport.
Yeah. No, it's going to be weird how that works out. But for the Dodgers, though, too, like, look at all the guys that have been hurt. And then I don't know if you've seen, but the Giants have played a much easier schedule than both those teams.
Well, I mean, look at the times they've just played the Diamondbacks alone, and I get that.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's the thing. And I think they play them today. I don't know. I just think that the real race in the NL West and in the NL too is going to be between the Padres and the Dodgers. I just think there's too much talent there.
The thing that got me is the one thing, and I was watching a couple of Giant games early on. It just happened to be in some primetime spots where I've been home and I've been in front of a TV because a lot of times I find myself at a desk or at work, as you know. But I've noticed that typically when it comes with bullpens, if you are bad early on, you're not going to get better down the stretch. What happens is you end up using a lot of guys. That whole stable gets tired, and they don't get better. They stay where they are. Or they get worse because you have taxed arms. But so far this year, I'd say the bullpen has been a lot better than what people think it is. And we remember a couple years. I mean, Mark Melanson was not a good Giant. They've had a couple of bullpen issues before, during, and after the Bochy era. So I mean, you see good things, and when you have something like a lineup that right now it's hitting good. Okay, against the Diamondbacks, I'm not sure if you count that. But if it's something like, you know what, the bullpen's been doing good and they're supposed to be okay, much different.
I think that when you start seeing them play the Padres, I mean, they play the Padres a lot at the end of the year. I'm very happy that that's the case.
So you could take them off the throne?
Yes. and
I think it's going to be an even split, though, mind you. Now, here's my prediction. Now, some people are saying, hey, are the Mets making the playoffs? And I said, are they winning their division?
That's all of it.
If they say the Mets are not winning the division,
they're not making the playoffs. Yeah.
Simply because I think, and especially the way that's going right now, I think there's got to be 3 teams from the West.
Oh, I agree. I
100%
agree. And that's when I mean the Giants are going to fall off.
So far, there's only 5 teams going on in the National League.
Yeah.
Now, I'm actually hearing that there's talk about expanding that to 6 and getting rid of the wild card to make it just best out of 3 series and having 3 sets of those. But let's not go there for now. Let's just go with the 5 at the moment.
So I still think the Giants will make the playoffs. But I mean, in terms of the NL West race, I think that it's going to be between the Dodgers and the Padres. And that's not to knock the Giants. I mean, they've still had an incredible start to this season. And making the playoffs for them this year is phenomenal. And I don't know. I just think you start looking at it, right now the Padres are 6 games ahead of, and I don't remember, I want to say it's the Cubs are the closest team to that second wild card spot. But the Padres are 6 games ahead of them. Already. That's gonna keep getting bigger, I think. So I think you're right about the Mets when you say that they have to win the division.
And that goes the same thing with the Braves, because I mean, people have been predicting the Braves to, win the division, and I've been wanting a Braves World Series for a while. Except, oh my God, Soraka tearing his Achilles twice. And let me tell you something. I was talking to somebody, and we were going off of this. What in any sport, right? What is the hardest injury to recover from? And
I think it's Achilles.
A lot of people say, now some people used to say ACL. Well, if you look at the advanced ways of rehabbing, it's not like what it used to be. Same thing with Tommy John. It's no longer a death sentence. It's the Achilles. And if you're in your 30s, that's going to kill you. Now, Kevin Durant just got off his Achilles, and he's played amazing in the NBA. Now, for baseball, I mean, he's a pitcher, so it's different. But I think for baseball, it's definitely the wrist. Because one foul ball, your wrist tweaks, and you could be screwed for the rest of your career. You'll never get it right. Look at Mark Teixeira. Just never seemed to be comfortable after that. After a series or 2 of some wrist issues, was never the same after.
So you think that's why they brought that wrist kind of brace in for sliding, just because it was so serious, where you had so many guys being heavily affected?
There's actually, and I actually used one when I played. So here's what happens. If you've noticed, Shohei Ohtani has a pad over the hand. If you remember, I want to say this is 2013, the Yankees had so many guys hit by a pitch in the hand, and it seemed like everybody had like a pop finger. I mean, we're talking Curtis Granderson. Robbie Cano had to get pulled and get x-rays immediately, and thank God that didn't happen for many. So, I mean, there's padded gloves, but a lot of guys don't like how they feel. But for the wrist guard, there's 2 things. So if we just pull here, my camera's a little different, of course. So what happens is Evo Shield makes the thing for the elbow as well. But they make one for the wrist, and what happens is it's a little metal plate. So what happens is you form it, let's sit there for a half hour. So when I'm at bat and I go here, I actually got a bat here. So when I hold the bat, right, I got the wrist guard here. Okay. That's to prevent myself getting hit in the wrist. But if we turn to the other side, in case the ball hits off the tip of my glove, instead of hitting the pressure point on my wrist, it just bounces off the metal. I pick it out with my hand and I throw the ball to first base or wherever it is in the infield. So it's a double edge protection right there. Infield and to the plate.
Okay. So so that's a good thing then.
Yeah. I mean, you just don't want guys injured. I mean, that's why they went to the elbow guard and they're more advanced than what they used to. But I mean, same thing with the wrist. I mean, I wore it when I played infield and outfield personally because you just never know. And hey, it beats against the sun too.
So then question for you, we were talking about like moving Eric Hosmer a while back and you said that you think it's impossible. So I looked up Will Myers' deal. He makes $20 million this year, would make $20 million next year, and then he has a club option for $20 million that I would expect will be declined.
That's a cool. If it's a club option, I think it'll be declined just because of cap room.
Yeah, is he movable?
It just sucks because I mean, a couple years ago, I would hit the books and say if this is a yes or no. So the problem being is that you're gonna, and this happens every couple of years now. You have some guy that's making a lot of money, but he's not all that great. If he's not an absolute performer, I'm not sure how movable he is. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of times where even the team traded him, he's going to have to eat a little bit of the money. For instance, did you know that the Diamondbacks are still playing Zach Greinke? $10.3 million this year. Another reason why, if you looked at that article I sent you, I told you this is the organization that was very good early on, and now it just doesn't make sense. You got rid of Zach Greinke, still paying him. No, we got to sign Madison Bumgarner. I mean, just the disappointment that never ends. Will Myers, I mean,
he's not okay. The thing is, Will's not
okay. So let's
player.
say after this year and you go into the offseason, are you willing to? You're going to have to pay. I don't think you could say we're going to pay this year and you pay the next year. I think you're going to have to pay half the contract for the next 2 years after this year's over. Would you be okay with that?
So you're saying you would have to pay $10 million next year?
You're paying 10 years next year, and the year after you're paying another 10.
Well, I'm saying to trade him.
Well, yes, he would to trade him, yes.
No. So it would only be one more year. It'd only be 2022. That'd be the end of the deal after that. So it's just one additional year after this year.
I thought you said after this year would be 2 years. My mistake.
No. After this year, it's 1 year and then a club option after that, which I am expecting to be declined.
Is going to be declined. Now,
yeah.
I still think you're going to have to eat a little bit of the money so you could trade him.
Oh, I'm sorry that you signed a piece of paper without reading through.
No, I think if it is declined, I mean, it will be declined. I think he would be movable. I'm not like a huge advocate of like, oh, we got to get rid of Will Myers because that's
so is it going to be bad contract for bad contract?
Well, I don't know, but I think they have to see. The issue is they need to pay guys. They need to extend Musgrove. That needs to be something that is really.
So I mean, I think what you do is, I mean, he still has a little team control left, right?
Musgrove.
Yeah.
I want to say that it's either it's after this year or next year. He doesn't have much. It might be done. He might be a free agent after this year.
So I understand you have to. You just have to if you want to go someplace. Now, Blake Snell is locked up, of course. We know that Darvish is locked up, of course. I have no idea what's going on with Lamet, but he seemed either you got to shut him down completely or you're going to have to do the same thing you're doing with the best comparison I would put right now would be Seth Lugo of the Mets, if you know that story. So what happened is they put him in as a setup man, right? But the problem being is that if you're in the bullpen, you can't just be called on once every 4 or 5 days. You got to pitch 2 days in a row sometimes. So the way that I kind of looked at it is that there would be some times where he would go in relief pitching, pitch a great 7th and 8th inning. There was a time where he was the best relief pitcher of the month. This was a couple of years back. But, I mean, after that, you wouldn't see him for another 4 or 5 days because, again, some guys just don't get into the habit of rest. But if you look at his age, if you look at the buildup of the arm, if you look at his stuff, he's built for the bullpen. Now, it just seems like this. It's like Dinelson Lamet after 40 to 50 pitches. Hey, elbow hurts. You're killing me. So you either got two options. You got to shut him down, have the heel 100%. And listen, if it's Tommy John, get the surgery. If he's got loose bodies, get the surgery. Whatever you got to do, quit hurting this man. And that's why I think he'll be in the bullpen. So
what happens after
you call up Gore when he gets his shit together?
I think what they need to do is they need to move Dinelson Lamet and make him their closer. I think he might be the best closer in the sport. Yes.
And now you're saying this because Melanson is having an issue with the sticky stuff?
Well, that's part of it, but I also just think that you have an opportunity to move to help to save his elbow, and also we were having this discussion. We had a live stream yesterday. We were having this discussion with some of the listeners, and
I was there. Yes, I was there for the first half of it.
Okay, so this is probably like the last 5 minutes. Some of them were like, I don't think moving him to the bullpen is going to save his elbow. If that's the case, then like you said, shut him down because
that's why I'm saying it kind of goes like this, right? Again. If you could only pitch once every 5 days and the max you could throw is 20 to 30 pitches, then what are you doing here? Get yourself on the IL, find out what's wrong. I don't care what specialist you go to. Look at of all the medical specialists that are in just Orange County, Southern California, San Diego, wherever. I don't care if you got to go all the way to New York to find a doctor. I don't care if it's anywhere internationally. Whatever is going on with your elbow, you are a key piece to the Padres' future and a championship. Get it done. Why dick around? This was the same thing in the offseason. Hey, the elbow hurts, the elbow hurts, the elbow hurts. Is he getting Tommy John or is he fine? And don't lie. You don't do this in July.
Well,
you do this in November, December. You don't do it in July.
My thought for Lamet is if I'm Lamet's agent, I am refusing to let them go out there and keep trying to push him as a starter and keep stretching him out because to me it's inevitable that it's going to snap.
I'm not sure if the agent has leverage at that point. I really don't.
I don't know if he does, but I would be upset if I was Dinelson Lamet's agent. I'd be very upset. I'd say you're killing my dude here. Like he's not gonna last. You're destroying his career. That's how I feel about it. I don't know. I just think it's just difficult to me because the whole thing is. Will moving him to the pen really save his elbow? I don't know if that's the case, but if it does, what do you think about him being a closer? Because I think he has the perfect stuff to be a closer. You put Palm in the 7. So
again,
Melanson 7, Palm 8, Lamet 9.
Here's the problem that I also have, and here's the thing: he's not built for the bullpen like this, is because. Here's the way that I figured out the best ways to use a bullpen piece. And that is, now if you're Joe Madden, you kill these bullpen members year after year after year. So the way that I have thought about it is if you were a relief pitcher, let's just kind of go simple. You pitch 1 inning, and if you want to go by pitch count, I want to say the number is around 20, 25. Let's say it's Monday and you throw 20 pitches, 1 inning. Okay? Next day you say, hey, how do you feel? If you feel good, okay, so you could go another inning today if you are called upon, if the situation calls for it. That's Tuesday. But Wednesday, no, sit down, stay in the dugout. You're not pitching. The only problem I have with Lamet being a closer is because, number one, I think he has to develop into the position, and I think it's going to take some simulated games, and I think it's going to take an IL stint for number one. Number two, there can't be a situation on a regular basis where you have to call on your closer for 2 days in a row, and he can only do one of those scenarios. Listen, if it's 3 close games in a row, and if it's in a tight series, Monday, he closes a game. Tuesday, he closes a game. Okay, Wednesday, he's not available. I totally get it. Let's put somebody else in there to see if we secure the W. I understand that.
The one thing I
But
like
he
about
cannot
that,
pitch 2 days in a row. He doesn't belong there.
so the one thing I'll say is, I think that the thing about Lamet is that if you made him the closer, like you're saying, and he can't go 2 days in a row, luckily you have Palm there. They paid Palm what, $40 million, $35 million, and he's fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but then there's also the issue of, yeah, Palm's had some injury issues as well. So then it's just like it's just a mess right now for the Padres pitching, just because so many guys have been hurt. But I get what you're saying. Like you want a guy that's reliable to come out, and you want a guy that's consistent.
That's like a guy that comes out of there fashionably late just to wave and then go sit back down. Again, how many days can he pitch? What's his pitch count? I think that the Padres organization, I think that there's a lot of dirty hands on this. I'm not sure exactly who's involved. I'm not sure if it's Preller, Tingler. I have no idea if it's Rothschild. And like I said, I believe in Larry Rothschild. He's an ex-Yankee. I really had a liking to him. I think he's a great fit there. Young and old pitchers, but I just don't know who's involved, but somebody is tweaking with something because there's something wrong. We don't know anything about it, at least public knowledge. But inside the clubhouse, they're trying to do something they're not supposed to, and it's biting them. And we've been seeing this since the COVID year in, September? Before the postseason in October?
Well, Clev and Lamet went down like a week before the playoffs.
So does he need Tommy John surgery to get it out of the way like Clevenger? Or is there something else going on? I mean, there's been times where I'll never forget this. Jordan Montgomery, he pitched 1 inning, tapped to the elbow. Sure enough, there was a bone spur that chipped off and was basically digging into his UCL. So he had Tommy John surgery as well as a bone chip removed. Now, he's recovered and he's back in the Yankee rotation, but anytime that you see the elbow, and I've seen weird sports injuries. I remember the Markel Fultz injury where, get this, there's several times where that
was so
injury
weird.
Actually, here's the thing. I've talked to medical experts, and get this, there is between 10 to 20 ways how to do that X-ray or MRI. And if it's not in the right spots, you will not see a damn thing. So what happened is the Sixers team doctor, whoever it was, they botched the MRIs. And if you can't trust the medical personnel, then what are you supposed to do? That's not on Fultz. That's on salty Sixers fans. And that's on the professionals up at the organization.
Just talking about those injuries,
has something similar.
I will say I might just be cursed as a sports fan. That might just be the Padres' problem because you saw what happened to my Niners last year. Everyone dropped in New York week 2. It's been bad for injuries in my teams. They have been devastated by them.
Just remember this, Matt. And I remember being on the Simple Minds podcast, and the guys were saying, "Okay, we know you." Before they knew my teams, they're like, "What football team do you root for, Giants or Jets?" And I said, "Neither." Just remember, when the Met and Yankee regular seasons were still going on, before they made the playoffs or before we got to the Major League playoffs, we knew that the Giants and the Jets season was done. That's the only year where I remember them being out and baseball regular season was still going on. Now, me and you have this joke about there's something in the water. But I got to tell you, man, I don't care if it's the 49ers. I don't care if it's the Padres. If it's something miserable like that and guys are dropping down like flies, like they are just terrible. They're just tearing apart like single-ply toilet paper from the dollar store. I got one piece of advice for you. Watch hockey.
No, it's true. It gets brutal sometimes. Last year was terrible. Everything all happened at once.
That's what a radio commentator said to me. He just goes, "Listen, guys." He was referring to the Jets, the Giants, and then the Knicks and the Nets, and you just hear, "Well, watch hockey," because there was a time in New York, man. It was the baseball teams. Hockey had a little something going, and that was it. It was dead. That's terrible. And mind you, this city has 8 teams. 8 teams.
Well, let's see.
There's only 3, maybe 4 that are tolerable.
Yeah, over the time, it's pretty much just been the Yankees there that have really been able to sustain a lot of greatness, huh? The Rangers have been pretty good.
Because I want to say that the Rangers have held up, but they had a little bit of something going on. They got a rebuilding year, very young team, but there's a lot of stuff going on in that division. As far as the Yankees, I want to say 2013 is when they really started catching the injury bug. All the way up until 2000, I say 16 because 2017 was the only year they had no expectations and they were a game away from the World Series. During that 5-year stretch, it was miserable because they didn't want to spend. They had bad contracts. And I know that Hal's not his dad. I know he's not George Steinbrenner. We call him the boss. We know he's definitely not like him, but it just seems like he sat there and he was content with it. And that to me was a disgrace. When you have limited tools, it's something different. Like we know that back then, back to Padres, we know that the Padres up until I want to say 5 years ago had very limited resources. If we go over to the Yankees, you have every single resource at your disclosure. You have a great ties to Japan because of the guys you've had there. Look at now, if you're one of the very few teams that could have a big beer company, like nothing gets bigger than Budweiser. Unless you go maybe, what? Are you going Sam Adams in Boston? Yeah, okay. Heineken. If you're not one of those big beer companies there, it's very hard for everybody else to compete with that. Like, I mean, when you go to the Padres Stadium, yeah, a lot of the local restaurants are in business and stuff, but you still don't have that Budweiser logo in your outfield. You don't have these big companies. Petco can only do so much. Area, locations, sources. When you're the Yankees and you have everything at your disposal and you decide to be like, hey, hands, sit on it. Come on. Your team is cheeks right now and you're not at the trade deadline. You're not signing somebody new. Now, granted, I think there was a lot of mediocre starting pitchers that came by and got big money. But it was up until Garrett Cole when Brian Cashman basically went to Hal's office and been like, hey, man, you've needed a starting pitcher signed for 7 years. What are you going to do? Then they got Garrett Cole. Now, where if that was a good decision or a bad decision, it's going to be up for debate later on. You got to do what you got to do. A lot of mediocrity there.
When you start talking about like where the Padres have been at, they have had pretty much no money in recent years, but it's starting to come around. I mean, they're starting to.
You got the biggest contract in MLB history now.
What was that?
You got one of the biggest contracts in MLB history now.
Wouldn't imagine that 5 years ago. I would have never thought that was possible.
Let's see. You beat the record for the biggest franchise contract 4 times in what, 5 years?
Well, I think 5 now with Tatis.
Oh, what?
Because it was international, so it was the most money spent. It was international signing. Then it was.
I'm just going by the biggest franchise extension. It was Myers, then it was Haas, then it was Manny, then it was Tatis. That's 4 times in like 6 years.
Well, and then the year before, they spent the most money ever in they had in an offseason in an international signing. So like 5 years in a row, they've just spent more and more and more every year.
And we've actually talked about how it might catch up with them.
That's the scary part. That's why we're talking about Haas earlier.
But again, whether if he's there or not, I still think you're going to eat some of it. And me and you have both talked about how Tatis was overpaid. And I've talked to Chase about that as well.
Well, what do you think?
Well, if you remember, I've talked to you about this. I'm not sure if it was my show or your show, but I kind of said to myself, I see a Ronald Acuna Jr. Type deal. Now, he denied a 5 year, I want to say it was 40 to $45 million, basically before he was called up, and he declined and he said, I know I could make more. He doubled down on himself. He ended up signing for 10 years, 150 some odd $1 million. So I'm like, okay, how about we go 10 years, 200 million, lock it in, and there's still more time in his career for him to make more money. Nope, we're going 14 years, we're going over 400 million. So he went over twice the amount of money, and guess what? The guy still hasn't played 162 games yet.
Well, he played, it wasn't over 400, it was 14,340. I don't think it's an overpay. I think it's a good deal. I think Acuna had a big screw up, and I don't know why he ever would have signed that contract. Because you look at what guys are making, and also like,
well, it kind of goes like this. If you remember, Acuna, when he's trying to call himself safe at first base, everyone thought, even the manager thought he tore his ACL, but sure enough, no structural damage. He was just sore. They gave him a little time off. Just remember this. When you are in the arbitrary and team controllable years of the contracts, you're not making that much. Then it goes into arbitration. You agree on what it's worth, or you fight it in court. Essentially, in the next couple of years, it doesn't matter what happened. If you have an arm injury, you will never see that money again. You go for the guaranteed money up front, and he took it. Now, granted, I think when you're saying, hey, 300 million, and your agent is going to try and pry because he's trying to gamble and he's not going to lose anything no matter what. I mean, good on Tatis's part, but if you're the team, if you're the Padres, I wouldn't have gone nearly that high. Well, I understand it's a flashy signing, but if you look at his injury history and everything else, I mean, I was at 200 million, not much more.
Well, the one thing I will say is when you look at the deal, like this year, his base salary is $1 million. Next year it's 5, then it's 7, then it's 11, then it's 20 for a couple of years, then it's 25 for a couple of years. And then when he would have got the big money, that's when it goes up to 36 million. And
what happens when the Padres start running out of money and they're sweating and they're pulling out the books, figuring out what to do? Are they going to go bankrupt like the Texas Rangers did in 2010?
I hope not.
You understand what I mean?
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
We talk about where is this money coming from, right?
Well, I think
we're thinking that this is going to be in what, 5 years?
That what is in 5 years?
You think that the Padres are going to start getting the money troubles within 5 years?
I don't know if they will. They have a pretty big market.
What if?
Well, okay, so here's my thing. Because when you start talking about like, okay, they've been a small market team, I think what their overall like business strategy now is that they don't want to be a small market team anymore, and they are trying to become a big market team. And of course, easier said than done. But you start looking at what they've been building, and you start looking at kind of their numbers this year. They're the number one MLB team in ticket sales. They're number one. I don't think that has ever happened. I bet you they've never been top 10. It
kind of goes by this, right? Just remember this. The Padres not too long ago had very affordable tickets. Great venue. I say good ballpark.
Excellent.
It's very weird how people rank ballparks because, again, there's some people that rank Chase Field down in Arizona. Some people rank in their top 5, and I've seen the lowest grade on it be number 27.
It's a sweet park.
You know what I mean? Petco is a nice park. I really think it's enjoyable. I mean, the fans have gathered around for a while. It's a winning team. It's a competitive team. And it's also nice because as a fan, Matt, I would imagine you love it that's not being filled with Dodger fans.
Oh, yeah. No, and that's the thing. There's a lot of energy. I think it's pretty clear that they're the most exciting team in the sport.
And also, like I said, I mean, I'm pretty sure ticket sales went up a little bit, and I'm pretty sure the cost went up.
Not too bad. I'm going for the whole national series, so it can't be that bad.
Well, like I said, it's not like there's some of these teams that they're just wicked expensive. But
Oh
there's
yeah,
some that are in other markets where it's like, you know what? If I was close by, I'd be going every other day. Unfortunately, we can't.
yeah. Well, like
But
Chase Field.
if we just go by the environment and everything else they got going, I mean, they're gradually getting there. But there's
Yeah.
just going to be a time where everything hits, and we have no idea when this is going to be. But you don't just become a small market team to a big market team within 5 years.
Well, and that's the thing, though. That's why I'm actually really intrigued by what like what's going to happen with them, because you start looking at what they've been trying to build, how they've been doing it. They're trying to completely take over, I mean, market share in baseball in Southern California. They're trying to build a massive brand. They're trying to build an international brand. You look at why they traded for Yu Darvish. Obviously, he's a great pitcher, but there's a lot of that is because they're trying to build stuff in Asia. Like they're trying to build that fandom there. Same thing goes for South America and Mexico and those Latin American countries. They have an international team. They're trying to build an international brand, and it's don't get me wrong, it's really risky what they did, but they're trying to say Fernando Tatis is our guy. Fernando Tatis is the face of the Padres. He's the face of baseball. We're trying to become a big market team, and it's a huge gamble. But for
yes. Now here's the thing: if you go to a team like if you go to a nation like Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, I mean, I apparently bumped into Bobby Abreu's brother a couple years ago. Apparently, now he showed me like names on his cards. I believe he showed me one picture or so, and he basically told me how they treat baseball like religion down there. It's absolute religion. So if you're going to a market over there, I think it's kind of like whatever. Teams got facilities over there. People get paid to to be pulled from school to play, stuff like that. I think when you go over to the Asian markets, now I'll just say this: Hideki Matsui was a flashy pick for the Yankees back in the early 2000s, but he was a key in recruiting Masahiro Tanaka over, and that's one of those things that you just never forget. When you have Hideki Matsui, who does have a museum over in Japan, when you have something like old seats from the old Yankee Stadium there, it just shows you what it is. It's just a representative of what they do. It just shows you the pride, the power of the pinstripes. So whenever this goes, right, when these guys go home, or Kim might go back to I'm assuming he's going to South Korea in the off season. If he's, let's say, giving away hats or signing baseballs or whatever it is, I mean, it's just a good look for the Padres organization. I'm not sure if that was fixed in, or I have no idea how the TV deal goes out there or merchandise, but baseball is trying to expand, and guys like that are good for the sport.
No, it's definitely a big risk. I'm honestly just interested to see how it works out from a business standpoint, just because they went like, we're going to go really risky. We're going to basically put all of our chips on the table for Fernando.
Gotcha.
And I think it could work out. I think it could, like you're talking about him potentially being overpaid. In theory, like in the best scenario is that 5 years down the road, they restructure his deal and they pay him more. And I know like, oh, you don't pay more, but that means that it worked. Like that's the, hey, that was a good deal. That worked
Absolutely.
out. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at on it. Got to take off here in a second, but any last things want to go over, AJ?
Well, unfortunately, we'll probably have to do another couple entries, especially with the Olympics coming up again. Definitely talk a little bit about that. And I actually do have a little bit of conspiracies. The Olympics always draws conspiracies, but I have one in particular to baseball. Not it's got nothing to do with marijuana or steroids or anything like that. It would be just the format. And I actually think that it comes from a very controversial player that's currently playing in Robinson Cano. But we will view that on our episode. How do you feel about the sticky stuff? It's affected Melanson.
Oh, it's
and
definitely
also affected a former player that was a Padre, Garrett Richards, because without the sticky stuff, now we have no idea if it's spider tack, pine tar, sunscreen, and rosin, whatever it is, but he cannot throw his curveball. He does not throw it. He has no confidence with it. And Red Sox fans want him thrown to the same gulag in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 where Kyle Kuzma is going to be. Any thoughts about this? I mean, great pitchers becoming good being bad, anything?
I don't know. I think it makes sense. I think they did way too much. I don't get how rosin isn't allowed.
I think they didn't want rosin in the glove. It's okay for it to be on your hands, but I think they didn't want it on the glove. Now,
Tim Hill's look was, Tim Hill, right?
Yes.
Tim Hill's look was, I'm going to put rosin all over my hat, have it covered, and now he can't do it anymore. So if
you remember Clayton Kershaw, there's been times where the whole back of the hat was pine tar for Clayton Kershaw.
Really?
If I will actually send you a photo sometime. I remember seeing a hat covered in pine tar that was worn by Clayton Kershaw in a postseason game. I'm sure it was against the Astros, if I'm correct. If not, it's definitely some sort of postseason game. Time. Well, here's the way I kind of thought about it. Baseball polices itself, and it was one of those. It was a gentleman's agreement. We're using it. You could use it. But then offense is at an all-time low. Spin rate's at an all-time high. Strikeouts at an all-time high. And instead of getting grip, everyone is super gluing their fingers to the ball. So instead of me just being like, you know what? Instead of slipping or anything else, I'm going to just literally super glue my finger to it, and I'm just going to throw the ball. Now, there's been a couple of Red Sox pitchers. Now, this goes back to Japan and South Korea. They have Mizuno make the balls, and there is a treated leather and a tacky finish. Jake Disher, I'm pretty sure, will bring this up, but Mike Sosha brought this up, and he goes, when are we going to a ball where it actually has a little bit of a tacky finish? And I'm not sure when we're going to be there. Now, we know that the balls have changed 7 times within the last 7 years. And we know that pitchers are complaining about the ball being inconsistent. One being okay, and then the next one they get from a foul ball, they're going, whoa, what the hell? I think we're going to take another year or two to perfect this. But I don't think Mizuno is going to be doing the balls just simply because MLB owns Rollins and they want to have whatever they want with it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I do think there's going to be a battle the next 2 years. What's your take on that?
I don't know too much about it, to be honest. It's
a big debate about what the ball is, how it's changing, how they want to do it, but
I think that's something that it's just going to take a lot of time. Like you said, it's going to take a lot of time to kind of figure out what's the best. Also, I mean, they had the juice balls. I thought that was sick.
Well, I mean, that's actually part of it. That's part of the juice ball. So what happened is, right, offense went up a little bit, and they said, well, what if we do this? The power numbers went up. Then the power numbers went up again. Then they said, we got to dumb it down. And then they said that they deafened it, whatever that is. If you've noticed, teams like especially the Yankees, they really benefited off the last 2 years of the juice ball. That's 2018 and 2019. Then 2020, they adjusted the ball. That way it wouldn't trampoline anymore. And here we are. Now, we still see a couple of guys raking. Like, I remember seeing that home run from Tatis in Chicago. I have no idea if the wind helped him or not, but I just saw him and I just see that stroke and I'm like, oh my God. And a shortstop hit that. Wow. So last question before we go. I know you got to take off. The Dodgers, it's going to be interesting for the trade deadline, but I just think they have a complete team and I don't think they have the money to afford to get other assets. What about the Giants, and what do you think about the Padres? Are they going to be active in the trade talks and the trade deadline? And, of course, the number one link that's been this way for the last year is Chris Bryant going to the Giants. So
I can't speak to what the Giants want to do just because I'm not quite sure. Would I expect they'll be active at the deadline? Absolutely. Giants have been a really good front office. I think Chris Bryant makes a lot of sense for them. For the Padres, I can guarantee that you're going to see some type of move that's the Padres are really
Especially
trying to
since
win.
last year they had an A+ at the trade deadline. The fact that the Padre fans thought that they were going to be with a mediocre catcher for their whole lives, and they got not one but two of them.
Yeah.
Only big sacrifice that everyone kind of is a little sad about. Me and Chase will tell you it's Cal Quantrill.
I love Cal. I love Cal.
Yes, we were all big believers in Cal. They treated him like crap. But I'm not sure what that is. Now, I don't think it's going to be Joey Gallo.
We were talking about that a little bit before.
Yes,
I think there's a chance.
I think you're going to be trading Abrams and giving Gallo $150 million. Again, Scott.
I don't think Abrams will be moved. I don't think Gore will be moved. I think Weathers and Campusano are the most likely guys to get moved. And I'm not saying
you're going to give him a catcher and you're going to give him a pitcher? You're going to give him a pitcher for a rental?
No, not for Gallo. I mean overall, in terms of the whole trade deadline.
Overall, gotcha. Yeah. That's terrible too, because I really like Weathers. I like
Weathers too, but that's where all the rumors and all the noise has been.
I just don't know. I think Weathers is just special. I think no matter what role you put him in, I think he's just going to be great. I don't think he's overhyped either. He's not like a Syndergaard or any of those type of guys.
The only issue I have with Weathers, and it's not a big knock, like it makes perfect sense, is his timeline to really be stretched out isn't right now. And the Padres are in desperate need of finding a guy that can be truly stretched out. So say they get a lower quality pitcher, and I can't think of, there was a guy that Chase brought up yesterday, and he would probably cost a lot. He said that would be a deal that he would be willing to move Weathers for.
Do you remember what team?
No, I don't. But there's been we've talked
not
so many
Scherzer,
guys.
Right?
No, we talked about Scherzer. People did not like that idea. I actually didn't love the idea, but Chase and Isaac were more talking about could Scherzer be moved for Weathers?
I think Scherzer's definitely going to be moved at the deadline.
You think so?
Because yes,
even though the Nationals are playing so well lately.
Yes, because at the end of the day, right? If you're the Nationals, this is the last year for Max Scherzer. You got to think about it this way, because you damn well know that the Giants, Dodgers, and Padres, not in that order, are all making the playoffs. So are you beating the Mets? Are you beating the Braves? Are you going to be number one in that division? And that answer is no. You got to get everything you can back. Soto's going to stay. Turner's going to trade. Scherzer, I'm not sure if he's coming back. And if he's not coming back, you have to deal him. Now,
That's
what
fair.
that price is to pay him for the rest of his year, I do not know the price. But I think if you eat the contract, I think it'll be a little bit less than what people think.
For Scherzer, if you are going to go and get him, you want to see an extension with it, especially if you're giving up Weathers. Just because having a half year for a young
I'm not thinking Weathers for Scherzer, and then you got to give him an extension. Also, another Scott Boras client.
Well, we saw how that's worked out with Eric Hosmer.
So
yeah, I don't know. I don't know too much about who the specific targets are now.
Here's a good question. Blake Snell is starting on the road, and you have to negotiate a contract with Scott Boras. What drink is in your hand? I'm going to need to find myself some very relaxing herbal tea to get myself relaxed, composed, to get through all this. And maybe some heartburn medication.
All right, AJ. Well, I appreciate you having me on.
Any last words, Matt?
I hope that they make a big move. I hope they make a splash move. I really think that they're going to add an outfielder. I think they're going to add a couple relievers, and I think they're going to add a starter. I think those are those four people. There's going to be four players at it. That's what I think. And I don't know who's going to be moved. I'd like to somehow see Eric Hosmer move, but I agree it seems like it's nearly impossible. So time will tell, but I don't know.
What's your expectations for this team?
Win a World Series in the next 3 years.
And for this year, what are you thinking? That's what I meant. This year, what are your expectations?
It's tough. It's really tough because this is the Padres team is a very up and down team, and if they don't win the World Series this year, I think people are they're never going to win. Well, they're in a stacked division.
Look at how many baseball teams do not win when they have good teams.
Yeah,
One
exactly.
injury can happen, it could be all over. That's fans talking out of their ass, and you know it, Matt.
Yeah, and
I think reasonable expectation for me. And I have no idea how it's going to be set up, but I think it's going to be the wild card. And no matter what, I think it's going to be wild card between two of those three teams, and then they're going to play each other. And then from there, I think the goal for the Padres is win the pennant. I think that's the expectation right now, because I don't know any other team in the National League. Because if you look at everyone in the East, or the least, I know it sounds like I'm talking football, the least, are the Mets and the Braves right now as a whole better than any team on the West Coast right now? The answer is no. Not one of those three teams as a whole and on a consistent basis. So if that's the team that you're playing for the pennant, you have to have very high confidence. Then it comes down to, hey, what's going to be the team in the American League? Is it going to be the A's? Now, history and a curse will say no, but if you look at it, they're a great team and nobody thought about it. Is it going to be the Red Sox? Or are they going to just do damage like they always do since the turn of the century? We don't know. But I think you have high hopes going on, and this is going to be a Padres year. And trust me, I actually might buy a jersey if they win the World Series. We will debate that, all right?
So you getting Tatis?
We shall see. We shall see. Potential.
All right.
But if it is, I want a Digicamo. It would be a Digicamo jersey. That's the one I like.
Fair enough.
All right. Thank you very much, Matt.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Ed.